Pursuant to MGL 7C 30A, section 20F, have been notifying the chair of a public body. Any person may make a video or audio recording of an open session of a meeting of a public body or may transmit the meeting from any meeting. Beginning the meeting, the chair shall inform other attendees of any such recording. This meeting is being recorded by CPSB, the town of Great Barrington. And I think that's it. And Albert Reg, I'm sorry. Any member of the public wishing to speak at the meeting must receive permission of the chair. The listing of agenda items are those reasonably anticipated by the chair, which may be discussed at the meeting. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. Select board's announcements and statements. Bill.
Nothing, thank you.
Dorothy?
Nothing.
And town manager's report? Okay, new business, a review of complaint against former board of library trustees chair. We are going to conduct this meeting as we've set the precedent for with the rules that were voted on by the select board. Back a few months ago. July 6th. And we will hear from each person has 5 minutes. There will be no rebuttal and no public comment. So we'll start with Ruby, if you want to come up and speak. Yes, please.
I hope you can all hear me. I usually have a very soft voice, so please tell me to speak up if you cannot hear. I wish to thank the select board for this meeting. This originated from my resignation letter on May 18th, 2026, after serving as a member of the Board of Library Trustees for more than 4 years and the chair of the Ramsdale Building Committee for the past 1.5 years. You have before you my resignation letter. This decision was an accumulation of multiple events this past year. The email enclosed in your packet is the straw that broke the camel's back. These events include refusing to work with certain others who volunteer their time and effort to the library. Many time-sensitive documents were discussed ad nauseum at our meetings, but never put into fruition, such as the FAQ for the CPC committee, MOU to the Ramsdale Building Committee, etc. The refusal to support community engagement events, but then take over the event without acknowledgement of the work that produced these events. She wrote to discourage a Great Barrington Library Fund member to run for the trustee's seat due to conflict of interest, which was refuted by the MBLC. The chair threatened resignation during the May trustees meeting when there is discourse that she did not agree on, but then went on as if nothing happened. Review of certain timeline of the Board of Library Trustees meeting show that there has been progression of planning for succession of the chair leadership, which is against the town charter. In April, the chair recommended we move the vote to June meeting, even though the election was in May. We nominated members for the chair position on May 13th. It was only nomination. And the letter that enclosed in your packet to the 3 members of the board came the following day, on May 14th, 1 day after the board monthly meeting. The suggested changes of the vote was different from the meeting the day before, removing my nomination and substituting another member who had made clear during the previous meeting that she did not want the position. This clearly was influencing our vote in the upcoming June meeting. There are 2 issues in this picture. The first is disregard of decisions that were made by the board members. The second is the letter to the three members of the trustees with the origin coming from the fourth member constituting a quorum and violates open meeting law. It is a persuasion by the present chair with her power as the chair on other members. I did not want to be associated with an organization that moves its members like chess pieces. I wish to make clear several points. The conduct of an elected member of our town committee has a responsibility to the people of the town and the library/town as an institution. We recognize the work needed to bring the project to fruition. We are not here for power or bragging rights. As we moved in the capacity of a volunteer with a purpose to contribute our time and expertise, we also need to govern our behavior on respect, inclusiveness, and support to all, whether it is other town folks or committee members. Those who are in the position of leadership need to be humble and guarded in expression of how they feel about others who try to help. We need to be inclusive of the efforts of others, regardless of their background or ability. We need to reach out to support the efforts of others. The Ramsdale Building Committee has met more than 30 times this past year to complete a deadline set by the MBLC grant process. The building committee members came to the meeting and provided much needed hours for the project. The chair of the Board of Library Trustees joined us, our meeting a handful of times. There is common knowledge shared by the Board of Library Trustees meetings that the need for tight timeline and the need for community engagement and outreach to the CBC committee and select board. The project needed strong financial backing. The Great Barrington Library Fund was started by Sharon Gregory to support this
Your time's
project.
up. Your 5 minutes is up.
Okay,
Do
so,
you have something in writing?
I'm sorry,
Do you have anything in writing for us?
yes,
You do want to hand that out, that'd be great. I mean, you've given us something to write, so. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Okay, Sharon.
So hi, Sharon Shalo. I'm not really sure how much of this is of substance to you and how much of it is personal complaints. Am I being examined about violation of open meeting law or about being apparently a bad chair to member of the board? So I'm a little confused about what to say, but I want to start by saying, and it's not an excuse, but it is a fact that unbeknownst to me, I let loose with an expletive at that May meeting. I guess I was manifesting what was in my mind, so I apologize to everybody for that. I apologize to anybody who heard it in the meeting. It's never been my intention to have such a lapse of decorum, so mea culpa on that one. I was surprised about the complaint that we weren't to hold the vote in May. Since the year before, we had done the exact same thing. We had nominated people in May and voted in June. Nobody told me about the town code that time. Everything was fine. I was looking at our regular meeting, which was the night after town election. I was trying to be considerate of the other new person on the board, thinking that she might not have time to get sworn in. And I thought that, you know, we could do the nominations in May, it would be clear we're making the transition, and vote in June and everybody was sworn in. Again, I had no idea I was violating town code, and I'm sorry for that. But it's in the minutes, you can go back and look and see that in 2025, we did the exact same thing. I didn't believe that my email violated open meeting law, and I'm gonna challenge Ruby's characterization of it because the nomination process really went sideways. But two members of the board who are now our co-chairs intended to be nominated as a team to co-chair. But somehow in the middle of that process of nominating two people to be co-chairs, another trustee member nominated Ruby. But the two other people had chosen to serve as a team, and they weren't interested in serving with a different person. And so I sent out what I thought was a clarifying memo, because we actually had 3 nominees for co-chair. By the time the end of the meeting was there, it wasn't just 2 nominees that I personally added a third. The minutes will reflect that. I didn't know that that would have come up in that way, or else I would have brought the minutes with me. I'm sure they're posted by now, so they will be online. I was trying to clarify it, and quite frankly, I was trying to protect Ruby's feelings, because I didn't want her vote to fail in open meeting the next month. She didn't have half the board with her. It was a really difficult meeting, and it was surprising to me because I thought it was going to be a fine meeting. It was going to be my last. I had served as chair for 2 years. I felt really confident about the people taking over, and I thought we were going to have a really nice meeting, but it really devolved. And in retrospect, I think it was going wrong from the get-go. So I was really rattled by the end of the meeting, and in that state, I didn't take charge of the nomination process in quite the way that a chair should have. And I take the blame for some of that confusion. But when you have somebody sitting down at the end of the table yelling out, the chair is trying to take over, a couple of times in the middle of us trying to do business, it's pretty rattling. I think she mentioned the fund. I wasn't sure who she was exactly talking about, and then I do want to say one thing about.
You only have about 20 seconds.
Okay, I was trying to enforce what I had learned about conflict of interest, which had been risen for me when Ruby was seen as being too involved with forming the fund. And that was a complaint that I was given as chair when Mark Brahensky was still town manager. So I was trying to separate the two, make the clear distinction, because that was what I had been told I should do. And State Ethics Commission had backed me up on that and had confirmed the understanding that I worked with. And as far as the fund goes,
Your time is up.
Okay.
So,
I can't say anymore, but I do have an email
good, that'd be great.
that Ruby wrote thanking me for announcing that she was no longer serving as the liaison to the library fund. Mhm.
Thank you. So the open presentation portion is now closed. It's our turn to deliberate. If you have any questions for either of the people who made presentations, direct them towards me and I will be glad to ask them or allow them to answer them. Anyone wants to start, or I will start.
One thing for clarification purpose, Ruby mentioned that basically the succession planning is a violation of the bylaws. Do we have an exact mention of the bylaw that's in violation of? Okay, I'm just looking through the charter for the.
Ruby, do you know where that is in the bylaws?
I'm sorry.
The question from Ben was, you had said that the succession planning was against the bylaws.
The charter states that it should be done in the meeting following the election.
Okay. That's what she was referring to.
Sure.
So there's a lot to unravel here, and I'll start a little bit. And maybe I'll just ramble on a little bit, but part of the problems, which I think I've made Liz aware of, and I don't think she had to be told, but is that a lot of our committees operate, each committee operates a little differently. And we don't give a lot of guidance, because, you know, some committees don't even have staff to give that guidance, because we just don't have the money for staff. Some committees do their own agendas and their own minutes, so it's difficult. I think we have to tighten things up on all committees as a whole. And it's not our job necessarily, but we do represent the town here. As far as the open meeting law goes, I'm not gonna say whether this email that was dated May 14th is or isn't a violation of the open meeting law. It would not be something you'd ever get from me. Because I think it likely is, but that's the state's determination, not mine. I think a lot of what happened here were with good intentions from people who really love this town on both sides. But, I think there were a lot of mistakes made that shouldn't have been made. One of the hardest things to do is to hurt other people's feelings. So when I was elected chair of the select board, and it was very clear that I had been chair of the school committee, and so this was the first. Two people, Bill Cook and Ed Abrams, voted against me. It was a 3-2 vote. You know what? There's two ways to look at this. I would never talk to them again, or I go out to breakfast with them from time to time, which I still do. They're friends of mine. It is difficult, but the open meeting law, I didn't know that they were gonna do that, nor should they have told me, and I understand their concerns. And some people still have concerns, and that's fine, I respect that. But there are times, and you, all 5 of us have been there, where it's uncomfortable. People who may be your neighbors, people who may be friends, or people you just don't wanna, you know, hurt. The open meeting law doesn't allow you to have private conversations or give your opinion other than to at an open meeting. And it, you know, we have had people ask us, well, can we do this in executive session? No, it doesn't allow you to do that. So I think all good intentions, but I think that there were some problems here that should not have happened. But I don't think, I at least hope it wasn't intentional, but I think we have to decide as a board if we're gonna do anything about it. And I think the biggest thing we can learn from this is how we can prevent this from happening on any of the boards, not just this board. You know, so, with a lack of money and a lack of staff. Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess just to touch on a few things you said, my example would be when, as far as trying to get all the boards on the same page and understanding, when the HIC or Housatonic Improvement Committee started. It was basically 5 new people, one person that had been a select board member for a few years, and our then town manager, who after everybody got established quickly, dropped off, and it was COVID. And then, you know, I was left to try to figure out how to do the agendas and minutes, and there's a lot of new people there, it was confusing. So maybe the town does wanna look into having a refresher course for everybody every year on certain things. It's a lot to keep track of. And it's also a lot of responsibility for volunteers to have. You know, there was a comment at our last night's meeting about term limits and stuff and getting all the same people off these boards. Well, there's a lot to ask of people to volunteer their time for these boards, whether they're elected or just appointed. And it's a lot of responsibility for people that have jobs and all that stuff, and sometimes it's a lot to ask, and as we all know, a lot of meetings get a little aggressive and up and down, and they're very emotional, and it's a lot to ask of people, so with that in mind, I wanna make people wanna volunteer for our town. I want people to get more involved. And, so we have to try to strike a good chord on how to move forward and educating people on how they should come forward and how they're supposed to interact in these things as far as open meeting laws and stuff, I think are very important. The letter, I understand, it's. For one thing, for even before I was involved in the select board or the HIC, it's been very clear to me that anybody on the library trustees is very passionate about the library. So that's gone on for a while, so I understand that. Things get heated there, and I've watched meetings where people resign and then they're back the next time and all that stuff, so. I'm very happy that we have such a passionate crew at our library committees, but. Should the email gone out, the email itself, I don't read it as a. Everybody's on it besides two of the folks, I understand that, but I. I don't know what we're talking about as far as, I don't know what to go as far as more than that, as far as. I don't think there was any ill intentions. I don't think it was set out to harm people. I don't think it was set out to disrespect anybody. I think it was just somebody trying to do what they thought was best for the future of our libraries at that time and for the best of that committee, so. That was a lot of rambling. Hopefully it made sense.
That's about saying all around what I did, or something.
I think my point is, seems to me that it's been echoed that there really wasn't any ill manner, ill intentions here. And some people just having disagreements and things the way they were put out in front of them. And so I think, I'm not real sure if there is a lot to do here other than accept what we've heard and make our decision. I'm almost thinking, I don't know if I really want to do anything.
Yeah, kind of along those lines. I mean, I think this is not just an issue with the library trustees, as Eric was touching on. I think this is kind of an issue throughout town government, that we have people who are so passionate and excited to be a part and help out their town. But we're governed by laws and rules that are pretty Byzantine. I mean, the fact that it took me 5 minutes looking through eco just to find the thing that I did find what you were citing, Ruby, but it takes work to get there, right? And we need training for people to be able to understand exactly what they're signing up for. I think a lot of people get into this and not fully understand all of the rules that actually dictate their behavior and the way that these meetings are supposed to be conducted. And so I think finding a way within our limited resources, but finding a way to do training, I think is going to benefit everybody. And I think this is a great example of exactly how, training for board chairs and board and committee members can really kind of help stop these kind of things from happening. So finding a way to kind of implement that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And there's nothing we can do to prevent neighbors coming before boards or friends that. Yes, you can recuse yourself if you feel like that's a problem, but not wanting to hurt a fellow members.
Yeah.
Feelings that's difficult. We've done this long enough to give you examples of it, the whole price chopper liquor license. Eddie Domaney graduated high school with me and we still text back and forth about the Red Sox, but we were on different sides of a discussion. And I'm glad that I have friends who still stick by me. Even, when I don't agree with them, but it is difficult. It's why some people don't want to be on boards.
Right.
Yeah, it's one of many reasons. The other is the rules. The rules are difficult to follow. As Phil already knew, but found out last night, they don't always make sense. It's frustrating. We had an economic development committee that just felt hindered by the open meeting law. And ended up dissolving it. It is very difficult. Well, I appreciate all Ruby's done for the town and I appreciate for bringing this forward. I understand the frustration. It is difficult.
I kind of agree with some of the things that Ben had said. I don't know about the training, but I certainly think there should be a specific designated sheet, if you will, paper that tells you exactly what you're getting into and need to know what it is before you commit. So and that you something I think you should review, read to understand it. You don't understand it, maybe you can come to someone and figure it out, but I think we need to know, like you said, what you're getting into before you get into it. Not necessarily training, but I think we certainly need something that points everything out. Meetings, conduct between each other, boards, etc.
Now, we have had training sessions put on both KP Law and the state here on the open meeting law. And, we opened it up for Southern Berkshire, and they were very well attended here. But, you know, between COVID and other excuses, we haven't done it, and it's something maybe we just need to try to do once or twice a year with the Zoom part of it. It makes it a little easier. Maybe people won't like it as much, but it makes it a little easier because you don't have to make sure someone can show up. To be here.
Yeah, and there's also like the online open meeting thing that everybody has to go through, but there needs to be something more thorough than that.
Yeah,
Wanted to click on, you know, in my opinion.
I think the best part of the ones that they've had here are when you get to ask questions.
Yes.
That's because things have happened to you,
Yeah.
you know, we changed the way we do agendas by that because we were not putting enough specific information on the agendas.
Yeah.
And so that was from a question from someone, I don't even think they're from Great Barrington, asked that. You know, we also, we should be doing that, you know, we all can't know everything, so it's very helpful. And what's the desire for tonight?
I'd like to accept things as they were stated, understanding that there was, I think, a misunderstanding. And I don't believe that it's a sound redundant, but I think that's what it is. I think that there was some I don't know, telling that they felt that they made a mistake.
I mean, I guess kind of to Sharon's point too, it's a clarification on the scope of what exactly we can decide in this, like, what are we?
You know, that in our rules, and I'll read it just because.
Yeah.
It says, take no further action, issue findings or observations regarding the complaint. Reaffirm or clarify expectations regarding board and committee conduct. Refer the matter to the appropriate board, committee, or other authority if applicable. Request additional information before taking action, or take any other action authorized by law and deemed appropriate by the select board. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, I've been on both sides of this, so it's not comfortable. The open meeting law for one is not optional, and I'm not saying that it was treated as optional, but I do believe that things should be done in an open meeting. If you wanted a co-chair, I'm not a real fan of co-chairs, but if you want co-chairs and they work together, that's fine. Suggest an open meeting, because when three of you just decide that that's what you're gonna do, that's a violation of the open meeting law. You just decided something that wasn't in public. And that's not appropriate. I'm not here to do the job of the state as far as the open meeting law. I mean, we could say, we could make a suggestion that, because it's not just Sharon was involved, that we strongly suggest the library trustees attend a course that we'll sponsor, because we're gonna eventually do one KP Law, I think, that they attend it. I think that's reasonable.
Yeah.
I think there are other things in here that are being brought up that, I think everyone maybe has learned a lesson. But I think the open meeting law is the biggest thing that we have to be careful of, and I've been on both sides in short-term rental. Lee and I were found that violate the open meeting law, not intentional, but
Right.
we did, and we apologize for it. And, And you will find out that whenever, well, Phil and I are a good example, we're doing the policies, that's an open meeting, that's not. That's considered a subcommittee and we can't just come back to you with what we think is a good idea. We have to do it in an open meeting and good, we all learn, we can't know everything. So, it's up to the board though, what they would like to do.
Yeah, I guess, you know, based off that conversation, you know, I would like to see, you know, there was open meeting issues, I guess, but, also I would like the town to, move forward with like creating just a learning packet. I like, again, I know we have to do the things online that are all like pre-recorded and click ahead, but I think there should be more of a packet that's handed out, not only to new members, but if a chair or somebody, first time chair, second time vice chair, that sort of things. I'm fine with stating that we, you know, there might have been issues here, but I don't know that there's any other actions I wanna take besides, having the town prepare, more educational stuff for all the committees.
I like that idea. I don't know if I want to get, I don't want 5 or 6, 7 pages, because I don't want to read it, but I think it's important to have some paper, something written that makes it easier to discern what your duties are, etc. I would be happy with something like that, but I don't think I want to make any judgments against either one of them.
Reconfirming the expectations of board chair. Moving forward with some sort of packet or training option. And making sure that it's available to all boards, that we kind of use this as a learning.
Yeah.
Moment for
I
the
think,
entire government.
yeah, I think we as much find ourselves representing the other committees or
Yeah.
representing citizens as being. Realizing that we've let people down in a certain way, understandably why, there's other things going on. But that we get back to the twice a year open meeting law training, that when someone becomes a chair. It is a daunting task for no matter what committee or board it is, and there should be. Some sort of guide, we don't have the staff to do it, we don't have the money to have staff to do it, but to do the best we can.
Great.
So we need to put this into motion and move ahead. of Some sort.
I think Ben wants to put up that, he said it very well.
Mhm.
Make a motion to. Reconfirm the responsibilities of board chair. And to. Instruct staff. To make a future plan for continued trainings. On board responsibilities that will be offered to all boards and committees in Great Barrington Town Government.
Well, second,
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you, everyone. Okay. We just,
Can we just ask, are we able to ask if they're satisfied with the help? No.
this is now, we're gonna have a workshop on strategic priorities. And this will be a workshop, so this will be a board workshop, with the town manager and assistant town manager and staff that may be here, so. And as a result of us being here for a while last night. I'm not as worried about getting through everything tonight as I am of leaving at a reasonable hour. I don't plan on being here at 8:30 or 8:45 tonight. But we'll get through as much as we can and do good work instead of trying to rush it.
I'm very excited by you now.
Those, turn it over to you.
Okay. Okay, so. I put before you a packet of information. The current strategic priorities. That was adopted on December 1st. a spreadsheet that, you saw on June first, when you had your joint meeting with the planning board. This is a slightly different, it is updated with comments from the planning board joint meeting. It also incorporates, comments from the finance committee on their recommendations for you. And then also comments from the Housatonic Improvement Committee, where they had supplied a list of capital improvements for me to consider adding to next year's capital improvement plan. And a lot of it overlaps with strategic priorities. Because they did such a wonderful job of actually mapping out end-year strategy for each item. So, so I incorporated that in there for a review. Also in the packet are the actual comments and recommendations from the finance committee. So I copied and pasted it into the actual spreadsheet, but you also have it as a separate document in larger font. Then the same thing with the Housatonic Improvement Committee that I see their proposed projects that they would like for me to consider adding into the CIP. I've also included for you the 5-year financial strategy that I had added into the budget on February 13th. As a reminder of some of the core items that we have been discussing for the last 6 months as far as finances and direction for the community and your focus. Another thing, another thing to in your packet is actually the 5-year capital plan that shows all of the projects. And these are, again, just reminders and things to help us keep on track and look at the actual strategic plan itself and see if it's lined up with what is it really reflective, and how should we move things around, or should things just drop off the actual main 3 tiers, or do they even qualify anymore to be within 3 tiers? So that's kind of what we just need to have that discussion. And lastly, I threw together literally in like 5 minutes. The last page before in your little packet is, I just threw together ideas of things that we've been discussing. Just so I could have this for my own notes and my own brain, for areas of focus, but, I thought I would share that with you, kind of so you can see where my head was, for 5 minutes. So that's it kind of in a nutshell as far as the material that is before you. I know it's a lot. I know that you can have some of it all together immediately for the meeting, but these, with the exception of the actual my notes, all of the other material really has been actually shared with you in some way or form in the last 6 plus or 7 months now, almost 8 months. So, so I'm gonna share my screen. Let's see. Okay. All right, so we have in your strategic priorities, we have 6 areas of focus. We have, with mission statement as our core center focus, we have 6 areas of focus around it. Infrastructure and assets, public health and safety, housing, sustainability and environment, economic development, and municipal service delivery. These are the 6 areas of focus that were actually based upon your December effort. Okay, so finance is actually not in here as a separate category because it's all encompassing. So I can I may consider actually putting in like a halo or copy image that finance is reflective around everything that we do. So moving forward, so we're just gonna go, not quickly, excuse me, we're just gonna go through this. And. So that we could get on these. So each area of focus has a goal, an intent, and then within it are the tiers. And we have also your spreadsheet that lists it out as well. So there are 4 priorities, there are strategic priorities. Strategic priorities and then supportive priorities. And so within infrastructure and assets, right now at the top here is the Housatonic Waterworks. When we discussed and updated on June 1st, the filing for the SGC, SJC, I reversed that on the spreadsheet. That was filed on May 22nd, and there hasn't been actually any updates since then, for the, exploration of acquisition. As of right now, also, I checked today, we have about 34,000 left from our infiltration water program that we have from ARPA. And we have to expend that by December 31st of this year. So that is something that it is a priority listed here as your top tier, but that is something that by December, if we do not get a new round of funds, that will be something that, you should consider maybe dropping down, or is it as high of a priority? Because when we talked about this in December, there was still a significant amount of money in there, but we have done a lot of effort to get the money out to people, and you elevated the amount threshold for people to take advantage of it. So yes, so we just need to talk about those kinds of things if it is if that's still a high priority or not, so.
Are we gonna go through these one by one, or is that what we're doing right?
This is the workshop, so this is all
Okay,
discussion.
Sure.
Yeah, I think we go one by one through it.
Yeah.
I think we do one more round, right? It would be a shame to return any of that money.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, we still have 4 months left,
Good.
so, which is a good thing, and I feel confident that we'll go through.
Yeah.
Enough of it, yeah.
Yeah, I think we keep that up to make sure we're still getting it out there, and then once December hits, hopefully we'll be at 0 in that category, and we can drop it down after that, unless the state supplies us with more money. I'm sure we can keep it going.
Right, I've had, heard that there is discussion or efforts with Representative Davis to actually seek out more money, and that has been in collaboration with Senator Mark. So they are working together to try to acquire some additional funds for more households.
I think part of it needs to be known, because each time we've raised it, so some of the people that took the money in the beginning, maybe at this point, they need their filters replaced, and so they can take advantage of it that way, so. Just keeping everybody up to speed on what can be used and the limits there, I think would be helpful.
And at the same time, it may be helpful in kind of the same release as an update of what the filing with the SGC really means.
Yeah.
I think people are a little confused about that and where we are.
Can you repeat that, please?
Yeah, I think as whether part of the same release about using the ARPA funds or as a separate press release, letting people understand what our filing with the SJC really means.
Can I make just a pitch in our workshop of doing a meeting? If we do a release, it's almost like have like a meeting in Housatonic where people can come. Maybe it's a HIC meeting, but maybe it's something like our board actually meets at Ramsdale or at the Uzi Dome or something, but just like actually doing something in Housatonic, kind of like, I think that makes a big difference of actually of us going there. I go there a lot, but all of them.
Just wanna walk to the meeting.
I really do. It's so nice.
Yeah,
But if we do that, are we gonna be able to speak freely about the legal process, or are you gonna have to sort of be quiet on certain things relating to executive session?
Depends on the content of what you.
Right, so I agree, I don't wanna overgeneralize, but I Ben's idea is terrific, but and the flip side is I just wouldn't wanna go there when people was telling and say, well, we can't talk about that.
I mean, I think it's even if we know what we are prepared to like present, if we have a presentation, right? And then it's like when part of that presentation is, there are probably going to be things that we still can't answer because of this, but truly just explaining the process, right? So people understand why we can't answer these things because of where we are in the work that we've done. I think that's where a lot of the communication falls down, so. And
I like that idea, but everyone's not gonna show up, so I don't know if it'd be too costly to actually have something printed or something in the paper or in our website also, to follow up with what our physical meeting, because everyone's not.
Yeah, I think actually Garfield, that's a great idea because the material is really important and I think a strategy as we've discussed many times in different examples, not just who's atomic bond works related.
Yeah.
Having a strategy for actually, for these different various moments is really important, for communications and then also community. That includes community engagement and where do you want to do it? How do you want to do it? Do you want staff involved? How do you actually, who are the stakeholders that we want to actually bring in for these meetings? And I think once the decisions are made and if once information has been revealed that we can actually share with the public, and then when decisions are starting to be, when you and that are ready to make a decision to bring before the community.
Yeah.
Then we really we need to use this time to prepare for what does that look like? What kind of community engagement, very similar to what we did with the water, the money for the filtration stuff, and actually having a strategy. We need to do the very same thing for what are your expectations for the staff and for each board member, and having even other boards being involved with it. So this is a conservation issue, this is HIC issue, this is a community effort as far as how this it interacts and where their involvement is. So I think that might be something that we can work on while we're waiting for information from the courts. That we can be ready for that, for that moment.
Yeah, the other thing seems to me, if we do have a meeting or when we do a meeting, there's a kind of explanation of what the money, how to apply for the money. The money that, if we get more money, it may have different parameters, it may not be the same, it can only be used for this. Maybe have staff there to sign people up before the meeting. So that it's easier, they don't have to come here, there's a couple people there that ask questions. So just to make things simpler. Either before, during, or after the meeting, whatever. So I think there's a lot we can do. That would be helpful.
I'd like to just throw a thought out there, the idea of going to, our board being Housatonic, I think that shows that a lot. I'm wondering, maybe it's not such a good idea, if we could possibly even have one meeting where we're at the gazebo. And it's open, it's out, and people can, then they've made it like coming into the building. It will give everyone else a look at us, see who we are that haven't been to these meetings.
I mean, the only thing that would slow that down, I can think of is technology.
And that could fall under municipal services, that you actually maybe do some type of roving meeting, so maybe one at the senior center. At the senior center, maybe a meeting at the fire station, one at the Ramsdale Library, one at the actual, at the Mason Library, and maybe on a every other month, like you switch it up. So, but that could be something in the municipal services.
I mean, we've done that in the past, not intentionally, but we've had at the senior center, we were expecting larger crowds. Done in Housatonic at the, Whoosy Dome, which is, has to be the most uncomfortable place to have a meeting for the crowds to sit on the bleachers, but, it's still, their Ramsdale may work better. Depending on what size crowd we get, but we have done different locations, we've done the high school actually, when we had large special permits.
I'm just wanna say that again, I still think that an outdoor venue is nice. There's always, when there's music there. They have microphones, and they put a couple of microphones, maybe some owls, I don't think. I like the idea, I wouldn't mind seeing, having seen who we are, and then a little less. So maybe than coming here as opposed to being.
Intimidated.
Yeah, I think finding ways to make all of this more accessible, I think moving that outside of this room is great, just. Strategy in general, we'd have to advertise it so people don't, if they're on the agenda and they don't show up here expecting that.
Has to be handicap accessible, senior
Yeah,
center
compliant.
acoustics are terrible down there.
Yeah,
That's, so we have to be careful about that, making sure that we have acoustics that people can actually hear us.
Ramsdale's great, it does get a little cozy, but we've packed a good number of people in there for HIC.
Yes. I'm just speaking of the senior center, I talked to Liz and the way people I've talked to them at the senior center of maybe having us come there. Actually, it was going to be Liz, but I think if we all went, that would be a good idea. I just asking to see if they really want to do this. What they mentioned it's bingo, and some other people said something, but I'm not getting a lot of people come in saying yes. So I'm gonna. Next Tuesday, I'll check and see who signed up, ask for the list, seems to make sure it's a while.
Okay. So, this is not a waterworks, anything else on that? There's a lot there.
There's a lot.
I guess I just wanted to go, maybe I'm jumping down, but about the filling station at the.
Yeah, that's all part of your one, that's.
Yeah, all right, so just wanna know how that's working out. I know we had filter issues there, pressure issues and
Yeah,
We had heating issues.
heating issues
Yeah.
for over the winter use and.
yeah, so if I remember correctly, there was coordination efforts. And, between Housatonic Waterworks, DEP, and the town. And who was going to do what during, the installation. And from my memory serving correctly, permits were not pulled. And so I had the building inspector and the plumbing inspector go take a look and check all of the work.
Yeah.
So I have not, I don't believe I got a status update from them, so I will take a look at that.
Yeah, and I just, from volunteering at the farmers markets, I remember there was an issue at one point where it was like knocking the pressure down. So the toilets weren't always working as properly as they should. So I think that got addressed, I just wasn't.
I think it was, but I think the major problem is the DEP said go do it. I don't think that they necessarily oversaw it. And when they found out, if my memory is correct, that it wasn't 365 days, that wasn't their intent. So
No, so, yeah, so that, I think it's a challenge because it is a private entity, Housatonic Waterworks is a private entity. They're using a town building. But if they're regulated or they're being enforced by DEP and so the collaboration of whose ownership of what. And who's paying for what, all of that, there was, yeah, so.
there definitely was some confusion.
Yeah.
So, but I will get a status at least of the code compliance components of it to make sure our building, because I'm
Yeah.
very concerned about that. Um,
If we have some communication to Houstonic about this process, I think we should include a realistic assessment of the timing of our judicial court process relating to determining a fair price.
Yeah, an explanation of what it is,
Right,
and, yeah, I agree.
And I think we also should include, and this is already out there from the state, sort of the timing of the and the latest rounds of enforcement from the state to compel Houstonic Waterworks to put in the filtration facility at the main plant. Because that should be imminent, but it's been imminent for quite a while now, but it's supposed to be coming online basically in the early fall, if I remember correctly. So I think we should include an update on that, because it's important, and not updating it is sort of confusing the people, I think.
Around to bridges, roads, sidewalks, and those fish.
Mm.
um. The next is the bridges, roads, sidewalks, and complete streets. You had your planning board meeting. I'm sorry, I'll go in order. Scheduled updates quarterly from staff. We did initiate that back in March. I believe we had one, and then, we did unfortunately skip in June, but I'm happy to report that I have already scheduled Mass DOT to give an update on Division Street and State Road Bridge. That'll be on the 27th of August. So that has been confirmed, and I'm waiting for the other project manager for Brookside Bridge updates, and all the other the smaller bridges as well, so that are in the queue. So that will be coming.
I'm sorry, so that includes both Brookside and Division in the same update?
Well, so they are overlapping as far as, so I am working with them to coordinate. Because the Division Street Bridge, once that is under construction, that temporary bridge is actually, the intent is to shift that over to Brookside. And so there is 2 project managers, one for each bridge, that I have to make sure they're talking to each other and coordinating that Mass DOT and coordinating the timeline. So that's what we're working with Ty and Bond, Chris, Steve and I are, Steve Larkin and Steve Bannon has been in the conversations as well to make sure that that is coordinated and timelined out. So we are keeping, as new information comes in, we are letting the Brookside community know about what information that we do have. So as soon as we get new information, I let them know. And unfortunately, the last update that I could provide them is in June. We've been waiting for Mass DOT to get back to us since mid-June. But I actually did hear from them today, so that was a good thing. And so they're coming, at least one of them is coming for Division Street Bridge update on the 27th, and I will be meeting with them internally prior to, so I can have that information and then keep our staff working on the actual coordination, because it's not just the bridges. We actually have some other projects in the vicinity that will impact it that we've been working on. So the Brush Hill culvert. And then the money that Representative Lee Davis got, the $250,000 for repairs to the Sheffield Road. So in all of that vicinity, it's going to be happening pretty much back to back. And so we want to make sure that all of the projects and the teams associated with it are understanding of what, where things are. And especially with public safety components and public works. So
What was the last update the Brookside community received on general timing? of New
It
Britain?
was, I believe, June 10th, around that time. We had a meeting with them, with Ty and Rod also, so they were able to have a conversation with the engineers.
Okay, so I,
So the Brookside Bridge, so I was giving, to the Brookside Bridge, and I believe Ty and Bond actually brought what came in before you and talked about it. The bridge has, what was originally designed, Mass DOT actually came back to us with a suggestion for having, not a suggestion, they recommended having a larger load capacity, so that's where the Division Street Bridge will then supplement that.
no, we definitely, speaking for myself, I think we definitely got that update and that was helpful, but I want to make sure that I know the last thing that the Brookside community was told about general timing.
Brookside community, to their credit, and not that we would ignore them otherwise, are very well organized. And if they have questions, they're not shy and they're very, very helpful. It's really good communications with them. And before anyone thinks, the other bridge we didn't mention is Cottage Street. That's another one that's in the DOT's hands. And that's being scheduled also, so there's a lot of bridges and a lot of road work that's gonna be done near the same time in Great Barrington.
Do we know when the street bridge?
There's gonna be an update to the select board on all bridges. I
Yes.
can't remember the date, but
Yeah.
we're gonna give an update on all of them.
So at least Division Street and State Road Bridge will be coming before you on the 27th by Mass DOT. So, and you know that we selected the design for the State Road Bridge, so, and Division Street is moving forward. I believe the procurement, they are in procurement, or that they have the bids and they're going through the actual submissions, so, so that, yeah, give us an update on.
They just did the Cottage Street Bridge,
They did. The
they had
25%.
the 25% review at the fire station last month, which was very well attended by the neighborhood.
And one of the things to point out, because the people are concerned about this, the timeline has not been terrific, but the state is putting the bill on all of these. So some people would disagree with me, but it may be worth a wait, because the prices of some of these bridges have become astronomical. And the state is doing it, so that's really helpful.
But do we have any wiggle room, bargaining power? Can we say, hey, you guys, you said 5 years for the Cottage Street Bridge and now it's what, 8?
Yeah, but they're at the 25%, so that's really helpful, that we know that it's in the pipeline. But you can go online and look up all the projected dates. Oh, I won't say they're not accurate, but they change. There's a lot of moving targets.
So, one of the things that, as you can see in the comments on your spreadsheet is. One of the comments that the FinCom made was actually creating a capital project subcommittee. That a lot of communities actually do have a capital projects or capital review committee that specializes in reviewing the capital improvement plan, and because it is a significant amount of the budget and a lot of the core projects, so that it would review CPC projects that are town related only. Any type of capital projects, and capital is anything that has a life expectancy of 3 years or more and at least $15,000 or more. So they would review vehicles, they would do all of the actual deep dive work with the staff. And then make recommendations to the select board and the finance committee for submission. So that is something that the finance committee is recommending that you consider putting in. It's not on your strategic priorities, but finance and capital have been a main topic for the last 8 months. And that is something that at least your advisors, your finance committee is recommended that you consider.
Not totally opposed, I don't wanna personally form this tonight. I also wanna understand that whether that really is totally necessary with the stretching of the staff. I mean, we just have so much staff, previously,
Same thing.
capital was done by the town manager, the assistant town manager, DPW superintendent, and brought to joint committees. So I'd like to just flesh this out a little more, but I mean, I'm not against it, it's just, there's so many days in the week and just wanna make sure we have a really good understanding of what this committee does and doesn't do.
Right, so it could be as a strategic priority. So it could be as a level 2 that you begin the effort of it.
I think with that in mind, this capital project subcommittee, I know I've mentioned it a few times and we've talked about it, Liz, is, I think somewhere along the lines, I'm on the building committee for the new school and I'm on the subcommittee where we review all change orders and everything. So whether that would be under this or a different.
No, it'd
Or-
be different.
Be different.
Yeah, so the capital projects committee is before it goes to town meeting for funding. So it is reviewing actually what's on the 5-year plan and strategies for, or at least it would be Chris and I and staff presenting to them our proposals and ideas and then them basically asking the deep dive questions. And then, either take it or leave it type of moments, but at least it would be listed on it that they had in their recommendations to town meeting voters or not, so you have another set of layered eyes on capital projects.
But they would give recommendations to the select board and finance
That's
committee who would then.
Right, yes, I mean, however you wanna phrase it, like some towns have it actually listed in their warrant that they also either do not recommend or recommend. So it depends on, we haven't even had that discussion, but if it is something that you feel is worth examining further, we can put it into the strategies. Or how it would be, but the building committee itself, Eric, is completely separate, so. A building committee is once we get the actual feasibility study or the funding for a project, once the costs have been approved. That's when we talked about, at the previous meeting, I brought up a designer selection that we're gonna have to come up with one eventually,
Right.
on actual procedures and policies for that.
Yeah.
It's because we do have buildings that are gonna be coming down the pipe on this, so.
But it would be, I guess what I'm talking about is I wanna make sure that it's for any town project, whether it's a building or. If the town's footing the bill for roads or something like that.
Right, so, right, the capital committee, the projects committee would be, and like, let's say DPW has, they're proposing 5 roads to be repaired, and this is the cost, and they're gonna work with Chris on a complete streets project, and so they're gonna go through actually evaluating the project and the costs associated with it and asking deeper dive questions like, do you really need the intersection to be like that, to be this expansive, or can we just trim it down type of thing for cost savings measures? So that's just one example of capital committees. CPC projects also, those kinds of, yeah.
What I'd like to see, before we put this on tier 2, is at some point. A little more information about capital projects subcommittee, so that we know what we're getting ourselves into. Again, I'm not against it, I just wanna be very cautious that we're not creating the level of bureaucracy that Great Barrington can't handle.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so just speaking more broadly, from my experiences in the finance committee and now here, I think this is an area where we can do better. I think that in the capital funding side, as a practical matter, again, my observation is you know, we would have these large scale authorizations, you know, $1 million, 2 million, 3 million. And they would typically be at the latter phases of our budget process, when people would be sort of beaten down a bit. And I don't think we had the information to really assess the individual line items that added up to the $1.5 million, $2 million authorizations. And it didn't include the decision. So if we were doing roads, I think it really didn't include a discussion of, well, there's 15 roads that need work, and we decided on those 4. That was left to staff. It didn't include, we could do all these sidewalks and we decided to do these. That was left to staff. So just to try to figure out, thinking about how to just do things better in the future. I would encourage us to have a format for more deliberation and communication about, you know, the individual projects during the course of the year that add up to the large authorizations that we deal with in the budget process. And I think the problem, but I think the biggest problem has been you know, there's only so much information that we could all process in the budget meetings. And this, I think we ended up spending a lot more time on $5,000 items in the budget than we did on $800,000 roads.
Part of that is human nature. It's frustrating. to all
Yeah,
of us.
I'm really trying to stay out of the, you know, being critical or accusing anyone of doing anything. I just, as a collective, I think we can do this better. And I think the committee is, I agree with you, it's a bit, you know, if we took every recommendation to add another committee, then, you know, we'd have a big problem. But I do think that this is trying to capture a bit of, you know, a gap in our process.
And I'm agreeing, I'm not disagreeing with you, I just want it fleshed out a little more before we just say, yeah, let's form another committee. And then find out it's not the committee that we thought we were forming.
Like more of an outline and.
Yeah,
Like that,
yeah.
I guess, and I agree, and also to Phil's point, I guess my question would be like, for the lucky select board member and finance committee member, does that make, budget season go from 15 meetings and 46 hours to 110?
Always a
You know.
consideration.
That was it, but I do understand the concept of it, and I do think, based on that, it is, something that definitely needs to be looked into. But, I just think like an outline or more of a proposal than this little blurb here would be very beneficial.
Right, and it may not be actually that you decide that you want a committee, but maybe it's a capital projects update or like a teaser of what are we looking at, what are we expecting? Can you talk to us more in detail as to like, okay, what are the roads that we're expecting that you're projecting for next year for FY 28, 29? Like, we already have a list of things that we're already starting to form, like we're creating lists, so maybe the teaser is in October. And you then get introduced to these things, so maybe it's not just a committee, but maybe it is some other type of format.
It's quite possible, Eric, that's what I was thinking, that we do 3 joint meetings a year with the finance committee, away from budget time.
Right.
And as a starter at least, so that we get updates and we get to give our impressions. And everyone who's elected has a say in it, and it doesn't have to go from the subcommittee to the whole committee. That we're all in the room together and we can make decisions then. I mean, I'm not sure which is better or which is worse, but I think it's worth exploring.
I just wanted to say that I like the idea, but I kind of think of it as, with your committee is the same as too many cooks spoil the broth. We have 900 committees.
That's right, joint meeting might be
Yeah.
better.
The flip side of that is this topic takes time. So, you know, the people who attend the meeting have to sort of be accepting of the fact that it's gonna take a while. You know, it may not be compelling television, you know, it's gonna take a while.
Yeah, no, and I think finance committee, I won't speak for them, but I know the select board, we don't shy away from meeting. So If it takes two instead of 1.25, then, we continue it. I agree.
I also don't think any of us are afraid of non-compelling television by this point.
Yes.
I think some of the benefit I do see of having those kind of teaser before they even show up in the budget is one, to give me some direction if that is actually what you to see. Before I put it in there and then go through written various iterations after I've already put in the 800 pages of work that we're doing it together this year, so maybe 900, I don't know.
Well, we learned, we gave you,
Yeah.
guidelines, you came back with those guidelines, and we said, no, we don't think so.
Right, so, so there can be some, advantages for Chris and I to be there with you and talking about the details of projects. Looking at where we're gonna be, where we're recommending improvements, whether it's South Main Street and what does the actual project look like and the details of it and how much money that we're expecting to the cost estimates and things, and then where we're in the process. It helps educate you as well as the community on getting introduced before they get to a town meeting. So they can look back at those videos and kind of see the details and see how it has progressed.
The other point that would be helpful at joint meetings is as we lead into the budget, we're more educated as both boards, so that our discussion of capital is more focused
Yeah,
during those meetings on the budget, because we understand the projects better.
yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense.
But I really do want to make sure that the staff's time also is used wisely.
Yes.
And efficiently. So if you're not interested in supporting a pickup truck for the police, I should know that now before the police go and try to really get the details and suiting it and getting the real costs associated with that, something like that. I mean, that was, again, you're not 5,000, that was only $2,700, and we had 45-minute discussion on that. If we had it prior to, then the chief we all could have anticipated something like that, and that's just one example of the 47 hours of budget meetings. Is that an accurate number?
Oh,
Yeah, you keep saying that number.
It's just going time saying each meeting by 3 hours.
But Phil's point's well taken. We do sometimes spend a lot of our time on the things that cost very little and less of our time the things that cost more,
Yeah.
but we have to be better.
But well, that's actually, I think that would be another reason, justification for these pre-meetings. Is that it is not a scary thing. It's not scary at the time that you get to town meeting, you would know the larger scale projects. More in depth, you would understand the justification for it, you would have already supported it prior to it showing up in the budget for. Then you to actually show or ask the questions, did we change all of the things that you had asked for previously?
An interesting way of doing it under a previous superintendent with the school, and even now to some extent, we used to have meetings well before budget talked about what we were looking for next year, and they were not allowed to talk about money. Like, what do you want to change in your school? What needs to be done? So we had a better overview, and we weren't focusing on money, we were focusing on concepts. And then when it got to the budget time, we put the concepts with the money so that we had a better understanding.
Just anything we could do to spend a little less time on the vehicle topic, I agree would be great. I don't know how to do that. Maybe we could just have a 10-minute limit on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would be glad.
I mean, I'm being a little, I don't know, sarcastic, but I just think we spend money on vehicles, it's in our budget, but somehow it just gets too much attention relative to the dollar amounts, in my opinion.
One of the things we could do, Phil,
Yeah.
is whoever, whether it's Madonna running the meeting, me running the meeting, is if it's something under $5,000, everyone gets a minute to speak on it. We don't get 15. Because it's time consuming. It may be interesting, may not be, but has very little effect on the budget.
That's a good idea.
We can budget a shot clock or a pitch count.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
The complete streets, was something that was discussed at the planning board joint meeting on June 1st. And they did state that they would be looking to update the complete streets plan. So that I believe you're comfortable with remaining as is, as a core priority. There was the sidewalk policy establishing a standard for decision-making on select materials. Asphalt versus concrete, stamped concrete and whatnot. I did include in the board committee staff comments from, High C about areas. Where it's not directly related to the sidewalk policy, but it is sidewalks. So I just put in there, and it's kind of also, it's connected to complete streets as well. Walking destination. And connecting people through safer located ways of accessing. Those areas.
Well, we talked about walkability and connectivity. When we apply for grants. Without making it too long of a process, maybe planning board, high C, finance committee, select board, all should make a recommendation. Because there may be things that we haven't thought about before we apply, and after we got the money, which is specifically for the committee, we've accidentally missed something. But, that may be a way to do it.
Yeah, but the sidewalk policy itself, that was something that I think Eric, you had brought up back in December and, in June, and we've mentioned having it possibly as a subcommittee item, policy subcommittee item, after they finish. They can put it on their list, their to-do list.
Yeah.
That there's some consistency in standards as far as what sidewalks and how they're structured, how they're maintained, which ones are on the list for plowing. All of those kinds of things, is what we.
I think it would be great to have something, the subcommittee or something, when they get to it, be able to have some folks that point directly at. it
Yeah.
And be like, this is why this one's blacktop and why that one is cement and why this one gets plowed and why that one is, the homeowner's responsibility.
Yeah.
And I think that's just important, so.
And also winter time, the DPW superintendent could say, well, which they have, but I don't know that we were aware of it, there is a list. We review it in the summer, we're not gonna change because there's a big storm today,
Right.
you know, that type of thing.
Yeah.
I had called the police station once regarding the shop taking care of the sidewalk and whatnot, and wondering if they're anyone's responsibility, and I was told it was not responsibility to shovel the wall. This was,
We don't have a
Probably, yeah.
bylaw that says that, but there are, I think 60% of the sidewalks, if I remember correctly, are on a list that are plowed in the winter, the rest are not. Because we don't have the street,
we
don't have the-
the lab division on the list.
so it depends on we don't have the staff to do 100% of the sidewalks. And, you know, we had a cemetery committee meeting the other day, and one of the things I mentioned, the cemeteries do get plowed, which is fine. Maybe they're plowed too soon, maybe they need to be plowed as a secondary, so that we're not spending overtime money on them. As long as there's no funeral, no one using it, but those are all things we need to look at, you know, to save money.
Anything else on?
Yeah, I think we should.
I know one thing, are we on number two?
We're on tier one still.
Right, tier one, but strategic priority number two. on that.
Yep.
Well, I wanted to know about, I spoke to you, and I told you, Liz, how people weren't actually stopping like they're supposed to on the East Street. Corridor, if you will, in that area, and is that
Yeah, so the.
golden?
The chief and I did meet with the community a couple of weeks ago. And we did present them with, the data from the speed signs. There is a portion, I believe, there is, some of the crosswalks are gonna be included in the state road bridge repairs. They pushed out the footprint just a little bit in their plans, but the actual East Street or the whole street that I think you're talking about, we did talk to the community about putting in like road humps, like speed humps. Also the potential of looking at it through a complete streets lens and looking at enclosing in the area a little bit more for speed reduction, even techniques that would put possibly like reaching the actual intersection that is proven to slow down vehicles. So there's more effort, there is more effort, but again, that we have to put it on the capital plan in order to spend money. That what was done was very small scale, and it is done with the projects that the paving and the drainage projects prior to, so yeah, so it wasn't done 100% with actual and the real engineers, like it could be best.
I would just like, if I could just like ask you about, as I told you, up by the lakes and the entrances are coming from the area, that are from Dehan's, if you will, that would coming in.
Yeah.
There's that corner there, the little corner, and people, as I told you, I've seen 3 people speed and 3 people not stop at that stop sign, which is before that little second farm. And it's dangerous, sir. I walk the dogs there. There's people there and you can't see around that corner, man. Somebody's coming flying. Not good. And also, while I'm speaking of it, now I don't know if it's the right time, but what are we doing about smoking and smoking pot at the lake?
So this is a strategic
Yeah,
planning
okay.
meeting, so let's
Again,
get it up in
I-
another meeting. Okay. Are we at elevators?
We are, so, the money has, again, this is a. The money's available for, but we just haven't had the, human resources to tackle some of the problems, but I have been in constant conversations with Steve Larkin for Newsom, library, there's were some issues with it. Police station, I believe, has been repaired already, so that's closed. At the town hall, we do have repairs that are slated in the money that was appropriated, for the repairs, and so I have contacted several companies to get quotes and to get actual an engineer to give us draft us plans as to what we actually need. So it's a work in progress.
And that may be the impetus for us to take our meetings on the road, because it may be closed for a little while.
Yeah, yeah,
We'll have to go to handicap accessible building.
yes.
Just just big picture, there's been a couple of references lately to thinking about the town's future need for a new police station.
Yes.
Can you, you've been dropping that in a bit here and there. Can you
Yeah.
elaborate on the thinking there?
It's on my throw spaghetti. That I threw together for 5 minutes. Yeah, it's a feasibility study, that was actually, I believe, on the CIP last year. For facilities. Did I put it on there? Yes, so police station renovation feasibility study, I had it slated for $150,000 for FY 28. So I'm gonna be moving forward with that as one of my priorities for this year. The building itself, the team has outgrown that building. It is not, it's never been actually designed for as a police station. There's a lot of safety concerns about it, security concerns. Being on a rotary also is not the safest area for police officers to come out and, if they need to be moving at a faster clip or expedited clip. There is no parking at this building, so there's only 3 spaces assigned to the building for the public,
For the public,
for the
yeah.
public, right? So the
And
parking.
you get to back up, and you get to back up into a rotary.
No, I've had that experience, yeah, yeah.
So the feasibility study, the building also is at its close to near end life, and the community needs to make a decision of whether or not to renovate the building. If the location is the ideal location, or if we need to actually seek out different locations, and that's what the feasibility study will do. You write the scope to have a consultant come help you do community engagement, work with the police department to identify what they, similar to what Ramsdale building is doing, right? That they went through with a consultant, they identified what the needs are, how to actually, what the needs for the next 20, 30 years are for the community and projections. You use somebody who specializes in designing public safety buildings. And then we can identify and put it in the scope that they need to also identify several other locations, prime locations, and even we can put it in the scope if there is a location that you would like examined to determine if it has the capacity, such as I've heard several people mention that it would be nice to have a public safety campus that combines with the fire department in that vicinity. So that could be included in the actual feasibility study. But that is something that is necessary.
If I may, and I guess I will, that police station isn't really that old. That police station went up shortly after we got the new fire station. And so I'm a little disgruntled by the fact that we're talking about having a new police station. When someone did not do the due diligence when they designed it, or we did or something, but that kind of sticks in my craw. That police station isn't all that old, and all these things that we were noting should not be necessary. It's probably, was it 10 years old maybe?
Oh,
These stations,
15?
the fire
Yeah.
station is the newer
Yeah.
of the two.
I knew it was.
police station. Yeah.
No, it's a previous building that.
Yeah, it wasn't built as a police station.
Okay, it's at least 30.
Does anyone remember what it was before?
It was a telephone office.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So it's
Okay.
retrofitted,
My
it was
mistake.
not designed, and if you do a tour of the building, which I did when I, before even my interview with you. Back in September of last year, you could just see there is a lot of building concerns, the HVAC system. You can see all of the window units in a police station that makes the building extremely vulnerable. So. There's there's no second tier, there's a basement and then a main floor, so there's a lot of elements to it that are. Not setting our team up for success.
Well, not successfully daily cop, but
Well,
I believe in the police.
yeah,
And this
so,
is-
Don't
Sorry, go ahead.
spending tons of money.
so I just wanted to bring it up, so I feel I've been updated on where you are right now. Obviously, this will get a lot more interest and public comment, and it's a biggie, so I would just encourage us to, move on, because this is a very complicated topic.
It is complicated and we'll have a
Yeah,
lot more discussions on it. It is the first step. It doesn't mean that
Sure.
we're building a police station next year.
Sure,
It's gonna be a 3+ years worth of of time and conversation. But this is the first step in when we evaluate the needs of the building, for designing it for the future.
and having a feasibility study, I would presume, is sort of helpful for applying for grants or when that's possible.
Absolutely, yes, because that can also be part of the scope.
Yeah.
That the consultant identifies funding opportunities for us. And there are definitely more state and federal opportunities for public safety strugglers.
Great, thank you.
And, make Phil's point, let's try to, we're not gonna finish this tonight, but let's try to move a little.
So yeah, so the Hickory County Community Center improvements, and that is, I feel a recommendation to actually keep that as a strike, as a number two.
Yeah.
There is funding opportunity potentially coming up the road from the state for these renovations that have been identified. That IC actually has identified in there, that the bathroom upgrades, ADA accessibility, so, yeah, so it's, there is funding opportunity that I'm seeking out for that.
Right.
Ramsdale project, library project that is slated actually for your the 10th of August, to get an update on that project. And so obviously that's either a number two or it should be elevated to a number one because of the funding that we are now eligible in the queue for. So I don't know if you wanna put it up for now, up to a number one.
One of the things with these tiers is if it's a number one, staff would give it a higher priority, and staff's going to have to give it a higher
Yeah.
priority. But just by the nature of our eligibility for funding and the nuances that are involved with,
Yeah.
with a building project. So, I would say
I
it should get
agree.
moved up.
Yeah.
Somebody wanna make that motion?
I make a motion that the Ramsdale Library project gets moved up to a number one core priority.
Just to be clear, before I see it, it doesn't mean we're endorsing the project or not endorsing, there's no cost yet. There's not a full scope that we've seen of drawings or anything. Well, we want staff to work on this and we wanna work on it.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous.
So can I just jump back a quick second, let's just on the row with the Huzi Commons.
Yeah.
So is that going to be added as a separate item moving forward? Is that kind of what this language is saying, or is it just gonna continue to ride with the community center?
With Ramsdale?
With the community center, with the.
Oh, the community center. For the actual community center, yeah, so those are, because those have been identified by the committee. Those will at least guide me with, with where if funding is available, then
Okay.
I can utilize and identify, okay. We need ADA accessibility, we need bathroom upgrades, we need, the kitchen would be great.
Yeah.
Right, actually upgrading the kitchen space in that building,
I
so.
think
Oh,
what,
but no, I'm saying, but are
Oh,
we gonna be looking at the commons as a separate project?
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
the-
So before we do that, this is where we, death by committee, and this is not a high C area, which I'm not saying I disagree, this is
Yeah.
all under the parks jurisdiction.
Right,
So it should go through the parks
yeah,
recommendation and then to us, and just because I think we're leaving out the people who end up doing some of the voting.
I think that's fair, but I think even kind of understanding exactly how. Committees where they feel like there's gonna be overlap, I mean, there's already kind of a working between those. New committee, which commissioners between the groups, but just like establishing exactly,
Yeah, no, I agree.
yeah,
But I think
yeah,
if
but,
we adopt this now,
yeah,
and someone in the park says, well, hold it, should we at least talk about it? I think it's a great idea, I'm not against
So,
it.
yes, sorry, so do you want to actually, is there merit to at least put it as a 3 and add it to the strategic priorities? Or is it something that is not at the level that you want staff yet to be intently working?
yeah, and I think that's where I'm kind of thinking of it as Steve, is like, do we wanna just have it kind of like something that is on staff's radar as a separate thing to kind of be putting resources behind? And knowing that,
Well, I think two parts of this, I think, and I'm on the park, so.
Yeah.
But I think it should go to the park for their comments, and we can elevate it, that's fine.
Okay.
But I just don't think we should leave the parks out of it.
no, absolutely,
Parks first, do you want it to go to Parks first before it goes on to the sheet?
I would think that would be the correct way of doing it. I don't think it's gonna slow anything down.
No.
So, and
I'll
I
prefer
can easily, after I make some of the adjustments on this sheet, I can send this out to, I mean. There's gonna be conservation, there's gonna be
Yeah,
a lot of different boards and committees that
Yes.
they really should all equally be able to chime in. And advise you on areas of like endorsing or not, saying, yes, this is, you know, think of it this way, think of it that way, whatever, so. Yeah, so I can send that out, and then when we schedule our part two.
Yeah.
You would have a little bit more feedback.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Fire station and. The easement for the utility pole. I don't think we. Not in the last 6 months, we've not really.
This was something I think the board added as a, something maybe you had heard and wanted to take care of. I'm not sure it's a strategic
We had,
priority.
we had done, yes, you're right.
It would. There is possibly an overall priority to, ensure there's the utilities, particularly electric and gas, in our business districts to support particularly building expansion, renovation, electrification. That's the way
Yeah.
it's going. And there is some recognition that the downtown grid doesn't have the capacity to support that. So you could reframe this as maybe a infrastructure priority in some other way, but naming it so specifically is a little bit.
Well, the reason at the time was there still is easement questions to where this pole is and the fact that it's blocking things. But is it a priority or strategic plan? Probably not. I think I agree with you.
Even as low as, I guess we're at a 3, support it.
I
Support it happening one day.
I don't know why at this point is a town priority, but
Yeah, I mean, do we
why
have,
it ever was.
do we have a sense that National Grid is not being responsive to the demands of our downtown customers?
No, I think at some point, grid infrastructure in general will have to be expanded and there's just no place to do it. Generally, these things are, the bills are footed by the individual businesses and building owners. And at some point, those bills will be so huge that the town may be participated as a, getting grants or things like that, so.
I think the reason this is on there from personal experience is there were a few people, business owners who really wanted this to be taken care of, and it was before the fire station was remodeled, so.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
It wasn't a priority at the time. I don't see it as a priority now. If someone, to put those lines underground at the time was $400,000 and some 2 million now. There was a damage then, so that becomes a tier 17 because we're not.
It's all prior.
Yeah, so I have no problem taking that off before I make that motion.
I make a motion to remove the fire station 20 Castle easement for utility pole relocation, to remove it from our priority list.
There a second,
Aye.
all in favor?
Aye.
Having said that, the easement, if it comes up because the building gets sold, I don't know if that's a priority, that's something that we just have to deal with.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The housekeeping.
yeah, exactly.
5G technology. Chris, I think we're pretty much good on the first one, the ongoing, the connectivity of portions of downtown. We're pretty much good, and Lisa's been working with the fiber to get the town buildings. So I think that's pretty much closed out. The next one is the actual 5G antennas in town, which was discussed at the planning board on June 1st. And I believe I was to send press examples of bylaws for the boxes on the poles, utilities pole. Several people come on, but the planning board is aware that that should be something that we can focus on.
Okay.
I have a little question, now, as far as the polls go, I don't know if this is still in the same vein or no. But is there some way that we can make it where we don't have to ask permission every time we want to put something on a poll? Is there something we can set up?
Well, they're taking care of that, we can't put anything on that,
Yeah.
it's much easier now.
Yeah.
And if we own the pole, we can put it on there, if they own it, we don't.
That ain't right. Community, that's not hang with the community. Bastards.
Going into public safety and health now. The ambulance service study. Not looking for the income, recommendation yet, but the regionalization study, that was the Collins Center study that was signed back in the end of 24 before Mark left, and it's a regional study with UMass that is moving forward. Chief Turner and I have a meeting with them on, I believe, the 10th or 12th of August. To get an update from them, so it had a little bit of lag time. One of the consultants or the assigned individuals for the Collins Center was out for maternity leave for the last 3 months, so we had to have the pause, but so that is moving forward and continuing. And as you know, we have discussed we've been keeping in closer contact with the Southern Berkshire Ambulance, and we have the agreement with them signed. There's gonna be the subcommittee, the review committee for them that meets on a quarterly basis. And Southern Berkshire Ambulance has been part of the conversations or identified stakeholder for the regionalization study with the Collins Center, so they have been engaged for that effort. So once all of that is ready to go, we will give you guys an update on the findings of the regionalization study. As you can see, the finance committee did talk about a regional public safety cooperation. This is something that they recommended that you consider. Between possibly opening up discussions with Stockbridge and West Stockbridge. These are things that they have recommended, but I have not had a time to review that or have the conversation with them as to what exactly that they are, they're thinking about.
Yeah. I think we can put that off for the next meeting at least.
But I do see, the second bullet is the co-responder program of maybe looking at, working with other communities to possibly fund that. So that the, $100,000 salary plus then the benefits on top of that is not something that is, covered by the town 100%.
Yeah, the only thing I would say about that, I'm all for shared services when they work, but we were sold that the co-respondent was necessary for Great Barrington. And now we're gonna share it with 6 towns. I was Great Barrington benefiting if it's only available 50% of the time.
So I guess that would be my concern too, is our one co-responder stretch too thin. And I'm not debating that other towns need one, but I guess that was have to be more vetted out and how that would go about.
Next item is heating and cooling centers. As a core priority in town facilities. Do have that capacity for the most part during office hours, during open hours, but I think some of the issues that we had experienced over the winter is when the town buildings are closed after hours, or when the conditions are so unsafe that it is not, that I had to close actually town hall twice during this winter. And that in having the building open even staff, putting them in jeopardy to get here, and then encouraging, having it advertised that it's a warming center, and then encouraging people to leave their homes. When I'm trying to keep people off the streets so that the DPW and emergency vehicles can actually attend to the roads and keep those routes, emergency routes open at all times without having emergencies to respond to, such as car accidents that have slid. I think that is something that we just need to be delicate about. I need a little bit more direction as to what exactly you mean by heating and cooling centers. Are you looking at it, because that will be a cost implication. Some of the buildings that we have do not have generators. This building, for example, does not have a generator. So that would be, at least in my estimation, a higher priority, that we can keep the building running when possibly we lose power in the middle of a windstorm, a rainstorm, or other type of natural issue that causes the power to go out. That then during normal business hours, we can keep staff here and we can keep it as a cooling or center.
So the question becomes, first of all, maybe changing this from town facilities to town facilities / private facilities, because, first South stays open later, so it doesn't put the onus on us to try to staff something that we can't. The other question is, when we're looking at large outages, maybe days, I think the high school does have a generator, so it would be working with the school district to make sure that people know to go there. So I think it's more the town facilities.
So is it then communications or coordination with regional partners?
I think it's both.
I think it's a coordination. I mean, I think this is all kind of becoming a part of a climate resiliency policy as well. Like, I think the thing that we don't have on the list that is becoming a part of our daily life, but having access to filtered air during a wildfire emergency, whether it's the smoke that we're getting right now, or when there's a fire on our actual mountain that makes it hard for people to go outside and breathe. They might not have full filtration in their house, so they need a place to go. The other night, storms brought power out in Houstonic out overnight. I had to take my family and go to my in-laws, so we had air conditioning for the baby, stuff like that. Just people knowing exactly what resources are available when. And yeah, I don't know if that's fully within the scope of our town and our staffing, so I think it's something like a public-private partnership that we have to kind of work to develop.
Totally agree.
I think it's really important with last statistics to 23.9% for Barrington was elderly. I think, I don't know how we can do it, but I know you said they don't have people coming out in the streets, but if you're in your house and it's freezing in your house, man,
Yeah.
you gotta come out.
Yeah.
We need to make sure the roads are clear so people can indeed. It's tough on anyone, and it's costly, and it's gotten wicked cold this past winter. It really, I think, is something that we really need to have. They're really concerning to me that we have these things and we're utilizing them. I think it's very important, especially with the elderly population.
So would it be then more acceptable that I have that, where staff looks at the emergency management plan, and we don't have one, they begin working on one, do we have one? So they just need to update it or make sure that there is a plan in place for these, and addressing the communications, the public-private partnerships, how, who's in charge of what, and how does the town, what is the town's role, defining the town's role for communication and coordination on getting people to the warming and cooling centers, or even to the hospital or other places during those times of need. So I guess.
What's the name of the committee? Is that some Berkshire Emergency Preparedness Committee?
There
And I
is
think
that, the town
A
has.
lot of Turner, everybody belong to that. So I think a lot of this is already in place.
We have our own stuff.
But we have an internal team as well that
Yeah.
works on a quarterly basis with our insurance.
Chief Carlisle, sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I can assign him if that is something that at least update the emergency management plan with, looking at including the warming and cooling centers and the communication
When
effort.
you talk about the emergency plan, is that gonna be something that's pretty obvious to the public? It's
Right.
not, it's gonna help us, it's not gonna help the public if they don't know. it. And I would love to see this buttoned up before it then went there.
I think the plan includes strategies for outreach in the case of.
Yeah.
Having to open a heating center or something, so that those tactical aspects are within that plan.
Oh, I know. I don't know what we need for.
Liz, maybe a part of this is, and is something we've chatted about, and I'm sure others have, is just that the overall, importance of our communications with our residents. Through a variety of ways, email, text, code red. My experience is that, you send out a lot of terrific information on the email list you have. And a lot of people just aren't on that email list, and I don't think they get anything, and a lot of people aren't on code red and they're not getting text, so. It's incredibly, I mean, we do, if we can coordinate the existing facilities we have for heating and cooling. That's a pretty effective way to give people some options when they need it, but it's just really critical to have a way to sort of let people know what's available
Yes.
at the time when they need it.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's, that's a a million times more about this topic of communications
Yeah.
than I do, but it just, it sort of permeates all of this, all the public health and safety topics in my opinion.
100%. So in your municipal services section, there
Right.
actually is a category for priority of communications and doing an assessment of existing communication channels. But I think in my cheat sheet, my 5-minute cheat sheet, I actually had in there a communications plan of strategies that we need to do, expectations, not just from the town manager's office, but from all staff, and what kind of templates, what kind of standards that we have, making sure that the press release has such and such information in it, making sure it's an official with the town seal, it's coming from an actual town department and employee, and things like that, and then how do we get it out? When is the expectation of, where, all of those kinds of things, so
Okay, great.
yes, we've had those conversations, Phil, so that's why I think that we need to have.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that a core part of this is communicating before the emergency, right? So people know and just rely, because a huge part of it too is just like with a freezing event, there could be a power outage, like it's a snowstorm, like I said, thunderstorm or something, if you were in a part of town, it's tonic, it doesn't have cell service, lack of power means you have absolutely no way to communicate. So you kind of need to have the plan baked in to kind of know that you can rely on these things. So we kind of people need to know, and need to have that out there as part of this in advance.
Fascinating, with all the increase in technology, transistor radios no longer exist.
I have a hand crank.
Yeah.
I do have a hand crank.
Yeah.
So that on that note for the communications, are you comfortable with me adding in a communications plan within that category?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. We're at 7:00.
We're still on public health and safety here too. And then, do you wanna go past this, or do you want to schedule another meeting in a few weeks?
Doesn't really, my fault, doesn't really mean 2 weeks, we were 3 hours yesterday, or 2 hours now. That's my opinion.
Get through public health.
Well, finish public health.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, as long as we schedule one within a couple.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We'll look at calendars and we'll send out an email for housekeeping. Or we'll do it at our next meeting.
A fire department study, continue efforts to consider recommendations on the 2018 fire studies. Service study, we have not. Actually done anything at this time yet.
So my question is
Yeah.
here. Should this be tier one? Because it's a 2018 study, we obviously have done very little with it, well before your time and.
Yeah.
And the fire department, as good as they are, is dwindling in members. And, we don't have the money for a full-time fire department, but, or we may have to make the money.
Hmm.
But do we wait till there's a crisis, which we're getting closer to, or do we elevate this?
Well, that's a great question. I think, the good thing is that you have in your policies and procedures that you have to look at this every 6 months. So by that time, we should have some results from the actual ambulance study as well, that can overlap, which they may make recommendations to absorb that service in some fashion that could impact the fire department as well. And other communities, they've started commingling, taking in the ambulance service as well as their fire department, so,
So
yeah, I think
we can wait another 6
I think waiting extra 6 months is not gonna hurt, and also the study is actually, it's okay to dust off, but it will probably need to be updated as well, because that's pre-COVID.
Yeah.
So that's unfortunate with studies, is that if you wait too long, they are almost irrelevant and you have to start all over again.
And I'm sure I read the study, I don't remember it, but it also, our fire department had much larger numbers before COVID.
Okay. Okay, so that can remain as a
Yeah.
2
from
for the
5
time being?
6 months, yeah.
Yeah, okay, alright. Next is the speed calming measures and traffic management, which we did talk about. A lot of these things they cover both or multiple areas of focus, so that's infrastructure and assets. It is also a public safety element to it. That we did talk about the actual East Street corridor with planning board, crosswalk improvements, speed bumps, narrowing by traffic furniture. I had the meeting with the chief, as I mentioned, and the community. And improvements were on the funding for the crosswalk improvement is on the 26th annual town meeting capital articles. So, we will be moving forward with those improvements to address and see what them sell.
There, one of the challenges on this, as I understand it, is that, you know, there's the distinction between the state roads and the local roads, right? So, you know, this has been the topic that I sort of hear the most concerns, complaints, input about. And you know, it's a dire problem. I think we all agree on that. And am I correct in saying that if it's a state road, then we, you know, our ability to move quickly and make changes quickly is severely constrained? Is that?
Yeah, it is definitely elongated, and that's more cooks to the kitchen, yeah. So we're limited in even.
Yeah, so Main Street's a state road, right? Just to throw that.
No, it's not actually. So State Road is a state road, but Main Street is our road.
Okay, so.
And South Main is our road as well.
I know we want to adjourn, and I know we don't want to get too micro, but like, so the Main Street, the crossing right at Fuel. Okay, probably the busiest crossing where we all have seen the most harrowing experiences probably. You know, we have the system where people press a button.
Yep.
And then the lights flicker and highlight to the traffic that they're crossing. I've seen other towns where the flickering is either triggered by a sensor or it's sort of continuous. So I've seen a lot of situations lately where people are crossing and they didn't even know that there was that button there to press to trigger the flickering light. And so that's a operational detail, but I can't conclude on this topic without sort of mentioning that. I think that's a huge problem. There's a lot of problems on this topic, but that's one that I've seen a lot lately, and one where that might be, relatively speaking, an easier fix.
For just keeping the lights flashing?
Or have it driven, have a motion sensor trigger to the.
The louder something rather than the former, because you keep that.
No, I never, I never said keep it on all the time, but I've seen that, but I just. It's, people are crossing and they're not engaging, they don't even know it's there. They have, I mean, visitors to the town, they have no idea the risk they're taking crossing that street.
Too busy texting. to-
Yeah, it just doesn't sound like an old man, but Eric, and they're all looking at their phones and they don't even know they're crossing the street.
Yeah.
Right, so, so some people know how to do it and a lot of people don't, they have no clue, and they have no idea what they're walking into. So, I know we wanna move on, but I just had to mention it.
I just think, if I may say, I think it's actually the place where there was the most harrowing experiences is down by the senior center. We've had
That's bad
3
too,
deaths there.
that's bad, that's very bad too, same thing.
Definitely think that, yeah, South Main Street is the top priority of the crosswalks improvements and looking at, we've discussed also possible funding of identifying additional funding sources to add in sidewalks, and so we're in discussions with Ty and Bond to begin engineering to create a sidewalk on both, making sure that the sidewalks are there, are just there. So we're discussing that, and we're in the beginning stages of that. Now, as far as this street, the improvements were done relatively recent. We'll have to take a look at actual signage, Phil. That would be my suggestion before any effort goes into looking at it, but coming from a very touristy area, that's just, people are looking everywhere except in front of them. They're either looking at their phone, like Eric said, or they're looking up and around, or they're looking down Railroad Street, and they're just, that's what they want. Or a store across the street, and they're jaywalking and they run out in front of cars, so it is something that. There's only so much the town can do, and making sure that the technology that we use now is actually working, which. That is the most important, is making it available at this time. I'm not saying that it's the right technology, but I just. Making sure that that is operating the way it's supposed to is the town's responsibility at this time. South Main, I think, is the higher priority, and making sure that that is properly equitable to the ones that are on the street, at least for showcasing that.
That's where a lot of our elderly are, so it's. They don't move as quickly as.
Yeah, I agree.
Here's first.
So
There's one very small kind of question on this thing, and it's kind of for Chris and the planning board. Chris, do we ever look at snacks? Are you familiar with the concept of watching the way that snow, when we get snowfall, and actually seeing the way that cars actually use the road to understand the amount of the road that cars actually need, and then how you can make adjustments for pedestrians? Do we ever collect anything like that during winter time?
No.
That's those.
It's kind of like looking at where the paths.
You actually see.
And then you can then build the path.
Exactly, yeah, but so I mean, there's a whole kind of thought about, you can actually see the way the cars are actually using the road. It's like snow. I believe it's SEM, like snow neck. But like, I don't know, it's just something to kind of consider, where, I mean, we take a look at like the way that, to actually understand the way that cars are using the road, and then kind of getting giving us an idea of how we might actually be able to come up with solutions in the future of how much we actually need to give to the automobiles and what we give back to pedestrians, so.
Chris, you may remember, and I don't think my memory is faulty, at one point we had traffic engineers who recommended we go to one lane.
Yeah.
Coming down Main Street, and it failed the select board 4-1, because it probably would have worked for pedestrians. But East Street and Main Street would have changed places, and everyone would have gone down East Street, and Main Street might have become a ghost town.
Was
That
that
was
in
my
the
first
context
year.
of
It was after,
the crosswalk buttons?
yeah, it was right before that, yes.
It was what led to that, I think, yeah,
Yes.
that was
Yeah.
like our first year or something.
Yeah.
Close to it, so.
It would have worked for pedestrians very well, it may have killed Main Street, and it really would ruin the East Street neighborhood.
Yeah.
Okay, town fair accessibility assessment.
Um,
I can give an update on this one.
yeah.
I mean, the update is that we just have not been able to meet for a few months. I think last time we met, I said the irony of having a childcare committee of people who are involved with children is that everyone gets sick. And that kind of derailed us back in the start of the year. And then it's finding a time to kind of get everyone together. It felt very close to getting, especially our conversations with the United Way and kind of like getting a roadmap of like what could actually look like. So it's just a committee logistics issue to kind of get something before the board, but I'm hoping that we will still get something this year, so.
The high C did suggest, putting the sales at the Memorial Playground and seating for caregivers, so just putting that.
Yeah.
There for you to see,
And this goes back to I see parks
right,
possibly
exactly,
having,
right,
maybe we should have a joint meeting at some point.
But
to
Sarah
focus.
was coming to some of our meetings, she
Yeah.
hasn't recently, but I'm sure she will.
But, and I mean, I know Tom and like I've been. The shade sales for playground equipment both here in Echo Park, I think are gonna become more and more of a necessity as. It gets hotter in the middle of the day, kids can't actually use the playground.
See, this is where we do waste a little time, because this was all brought up during CBC.
Yes,
It was these crazy shade sales were $90,000.
I know,
I take 4 poles and put a sheet up before I spent $90,000 on shade sales.
Yes.
So I think we have to figure out something, I think we need them.
we
but
need
they're
something,
Ridiculous
yeah,
cost.
I'm not saying it has to be that solution, but.
Yeah.
but I think also, and that's where, again, if this is something that within the
Cool.
childcare, then we bring it to all of the committees, but also identifying all of the locations that
Yeah.
it could actually be assisting and then prioritize it, so we utilize it in the best strategy. Of where the children are and where the families are wanting to go, so. Who's to say that this is the right playground versus another playground? Discussion, but they did bring it up to me, so, and I know that it was on the CPC
Yeah.
applications last year being considered. It didn't move forward, but. So it'll be brought up again this year, so.
And in combination. There's been some proposals to plant more trees down at the skate park, which in itself would add shade, there's
Right.
other problems that come along with that, that's why it hasn't been done.
Yeah.
But, the Ellsworth Brisky Park at least had more trees than it did have, still not shade.
Yeah,
Okay,
So, yeah, so I will schedule the next one with you, to keep going. I do ask that you look through at least the material that I did provide you, especially for the finances and. The financial strategy, the 5-year financial strategy, is to refresh your brain on that kind of stuff, because that'll be coming up next under the new city services. Also, just like to look at my cheat sheet, there are other areas, so you can see where my brain is thinking, and if it is something you wanna incorporate into the strategic priorities. One of them will actually be brought before you on the 10th of August as a teaser, or not, or is requesting recommendation, so I need you to consider it as the noted or an intent for applying for the Housatonic Cultural District. That I have been working, Chris and I are working with the Housatonic Improvement Committee on the application, which is due in February. So we will be presenting that to you on the 10th. So I am recommending that that be placed on your strategic priorities when that time comes, okay, under economic development.
They would have said.
Can I just,
Citizen speaker. Very cool.
Thank you for the hearing today. Besides more training, I wish there were a mechanism by which, some misunderstandings are corrected during the process, so people don't think that whatever somebody said is really the reigning, thought. Perhaps the appointment of the new town council will help, because all I hear is like, town council wouldn't allow that and wouldn't allow this, and so there's so many no's. There's, there needs to be some level setting as to what we can do, so please consider that in addition to training. Second, capital planning, I think that's a really good idea, and sometimes you're, especially when I was on the finance committee, and I was just kind of glaze over because type font is like 2, and I'm thinking more graphical representation, like cumulative waves of by color of DPW versus police or whatever, so people can kind of see over time, 5 years pass, 5 years hence, where the money's going. And that would also help people to understand like the debt limits and things, the following stuff. So that kind of visualization, I think will be helpful, and people are concerned about finances. And last, finances, I just wondered sometime if you could talk about how you're structuring that, so people know which sessions to come to. I think it's a huge problem, and I would also like our finances to be considered within the realm of how much we have to pay for the school assessment. And I'd be happy to volunteer to help with the quantitative analysis.
Thank you, Sharon. Okay, Ms. Garzone.
James, 84 North Plain Road. It's gonna be about 2 minutes, I apologize. Talking about traffic, may we apply slowing traffic to all Great Barrington areas? Michelle has asked to slow down Division Street traffic for years. There's been several accidents at the Division Street North Plain intersection. I know it's probably the state, not us. There are speeders coming down my stretch of North Plain Road. If you don't know, my part of the corner is the part of the trail that crosses from Pearl to Welcome. So you have speeders coming eastbound, you have speeders going northbound, or should I say northbound and southbound, really. So I would love to slow down all of GB, but I understand that the south part of town is a priority because of the accidents we've had, so completely understandable. Regarding the budget, I would like 46, 56, 106 hours of conversations, whatever it takes, subcommittees, to set us up foundationally for years to come. As we know, we have severe budget issues. It's haunting us from years past, and it will continue for years in the future. If we have pre-meetings to not have a debate over $500 beach mats, postage stamps for hours, and the perception that we don't support police vehicles, fantastic. Let's have pre-meetings to avoid these long discussions about beach mats. Drives me nuts every year. And obviously, in order for us to do the town budget, we need the school budget first, so we know what we can back into the town budget. Because we have these 100-hour meetings of the town budget, and then the school says, oh, we have this much, and then we're like, uh-oh, now we need to take this out and that out, so we need to extra meetings. It's just, we waste our time talking about what we want and what we think is feasible, and then we get the school budget and we know we have to reduce it, and then we have to go to the school and tell them they have to reduce it. So there has to be better synergies with the school, which we all know is the driver of our taxes. So that leads us to, what are we going to do, right? We know the school budget is 70%. We know we support the police, right? But then it looks terrible then where we're saying no to police vehicles. About a new police building, I mean, we just went over a 13-year time span for over 4 votes culminating with a yes committee that it will cost us $100 million in new debt for the school. So now we're going to say, let's afford a new school police building. How about Housatonic Waterworks, which we know we're going to pay the bill at some point. We have underfunded pensions. We have high required employee benefits. We have an unrestrained water district sewer bill, which I keep complaining about, but nothing's going to be done about that because we have no purview, and that's what we keep on saying. The town already voted against a 2.5% override. We'll probably vote against it again if you keep on asking for it. We voted against the RTE. So let's please drive down costs and approve what we really need rather than repeatedly saying, which I've heard several times over the past 6 months, we're not setting them up for success. Well, you know what? We're not setting up the town citizens up for success because we're driving them out because we can't afford the high taxes. So let's set up the town citizens up for success so they can continue to thrive and live in this great community that we all love. So we have our austere times that call for austerity measures, and we need to do things differently. Thank you.
Thank you. Rhea?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this is Reo Matsaki, 10 Lakeview Road. Just a couple quick points. So this is, I'm speaking, of course, just for myself, but one of the recommendations the Finance Committee made, this is something I agreed with, but on the second recommendation for the public health and safety, the regionalized regional cooperation. So here, really, what I had in mind was there are certain programs that can maybe be run more effectively, efficiently, and reduce costs if we do it more than one town. The co-responder, perhaps it's best if we do it by ourselves, but maybe if we include 2 or 3 more towns, it would work better. Maybe 1 more town. We don't know. So essentially, this is about us looking into how can we run these programs the most cost-effective way possible. And part of this is about data. If we don't know how often the co-responder is being deployed, being used, we have no way of knowing if this is something that we should keep with just Great Barrington or try to share the cost with other towns. And there might even be grants at the state level that's available if we do this at the regional or level rather than doing ourselves. So it is just a recommendation, at least my recommendation when I voted yes, is to prioritize looking into doing some of these things more cost effectively. Also, I would like just to mention that there was another recommendation when it came to public health and safety, their first recommendation that was not discussed at all. So I want to make sure that it is not forgotten, that next time you guys meet, that at least our first recommendation connected to public health and safety is discussed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, select board time. Bill? Ben?
It's a snow neck down. That's what it's called, snow neck. It's the neck down, which is another name for a curb extension. So that's where it comes from. It's like, I don't think I got it totally right when I said it. So look it up.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just wanted to thank Gwendolyn and the Du Bois Freedom Center. This was their first year for the bus, and they did a lot of work, and appreciate all the working parts and the people that helped put that together for the Du Bois Freedom Center.
Thank you, Kurt. Thank you. I'm all set, by unanimous consent, we are adjourned. Thank you.